But actually, I forgot to tell you, we were talking about like our first week, what people had to say. Well, the WNBA fined me for
No! You got fined for episode 1?
Dude, they fined me $1,500. I'm like, what? I'm like, this is just the beginning. I was like, you're kidding.
Every time Sophie Cunningham opens her mouth to speak the truth about what's happening in the WNBA, another email lands in her general manager's inbox with that dreaded subject line. Another fine. Another penalty for daring to tell it like it is. And this time, they didn't just double down, they tripled it.
They fined her again. Sophie Cunningham has now been fined 4 times this season. She's had 4 separate fines this season. And she got fined for comments on a podcast episode about referees. And it wasn't even like it was that bad.
The voices are getting louder. The frustration is reaching a boiling point. And the unthinkable is now being discussed openly across social media platforms and sports forums everywhere. Sophie Cunningham fans have had enough, and they're making it crystal clear. They want her to scrap the WNBA entirely and speak her mind regardless of the consequences Commissioner Kathy Engelbert keeps throwing her way.
Man, leave Sophie Cunningham alone, Kathy Engelbert. Don't nobody care about that corrupted WNBA and those corrupted referees. Y'all want to fine her $500. Why? Because y'all feeling some type of way because you, as the commissioner, not doing your job for that bum league. You hear me? At the end of the day, y'all have so many injuries. It's crazy. Y'all have over 150 injuries this year recorded. That's insane. Something not right.
What started as a simple podcast debut has turned into something much bigger. Sophie Cunningham launched her new podcast, Show Me Something with the Volume, Colin Cowherd's media empire, and within days of the first episode dropping, she was hit with a $1,500 fine. Not $500 this time. Not a slap on the wrist. $1,500 for having the audacity to acknowledge that WNBA referees are human beings who make mistakes, while simultaneously pointing out that they're making way too many of them.
If they didn't like you then, they sure aren't going to like you now. Sophie Cunningham has been making waves with the new podcast that she is now featured in, courtesy of The Volume. Sophie Cunningham letting it all out and not holding back one.
If you're enjoying this, please subscribe. Let's break this down, because the sheer audacity of what happened here will make your blood boil. Sophie Cunningham sat down on her podcast and did something revolutionary in today's WNBA. She told the truth. She said, and I quote, "If I was a ref, I know I would mess up all the time. Like, I'm not saying that your job is easy, but when it is a simple call right in front of your face multiple times, what are you doing?" She gave them credit. She acknowledged their job is difficult. She even admitted she wouldn't be good at it herself.
And she pulls me aside and she goes, "Come here, Soph, I have to talk to you." And this was in like front of everybody. And I was like, "What did I do now?" And she just smiled and she goes, "Hey, they're going to find you again." They're like, I was like, I even told them, I even credited them that their job was hard. I did say that. And I said that I would not be good at it.
But then she had the nerve to point out the obvious. They're just so inconsistent. Like, that's one thing. If you're on the other team and you're going to be fouling me, cool. But let me do it to you. This is what earned her a $1,500 fine. Not for cursing out officials. Not for making personal attacks. Not for crossing any line of professionalism. She got fined for saying what literally every fan, player, coach, and analyst has been saying all season long. The officiating is inconsistent.
The world of what they dealing with. So you telling me if I'm getting bullied, I can't make a video about it? You gonna punish me because I'm letting everybody know and the whole world know what's going on with me and that I'm crying out for help? So you gonna make me the bad guy?
This woman bent over backwards to be fair and balanced. She acknowledged the difficulty of officiating. She gave them the benefit of the doubt, and still got hammered with a $1,500 penalty for telling the truth. Sophie revealed on her podcast, "Everyone in my locker room, they're like, oh God, what is she going to say next?" Even her own teammates are walking on eggshells, terrified that association with her honesty might get them fined too. Their reaction tells you everything you need to know about how ridiculous this has become. But here's what makes it even more outrageous. This wasn't Sophie's first rodeo with the WNBA fine machine.
Is it uncommon for coaches or players to get fined in a professional league when talking about officiating? No, that's not uncommon. However, when your league is looking worse than the NFL on officiating, you know what you might ought to do? Sit down in the corner and shut the bleep up. And maybe you ought not be fining your players over it, because your officiating is dog shit.
She was hit with a $500 fine for a TikTok video where she lip-synced to Sabrina Carpenter's Manchild. The video went viral with over 1.3 million views. Sophie's reaction to that fine summed up her attitude perfectly. IDK, why this is funny to me. Like, okay, you got it, bud. Cause there's not more important things to be worried about with our league right now. And that was just the beginning. She was also fined $900 for defending Caitlin Clark in that infamous Connecticut Sun brawl. When JCS Sheldon poked Clark in the eye and Marina Mabry shoved her to the ground, Sophie stepped in and laid Sheldon out with a hard foul that sent a clear message: mess with our star. Deal with the consequences. For standing up for her teammate against targeted harassment, she got penalized nearly $1,000.
It wasn't that long ago that Sophie Cunningham made this little TikTok video. And in said TikTok video, and you can see right here, this was July 23rd, she put this up and said she got fined $500 by the WNBA for criticizing the refs.
Let's do the math here, because the numbers are absolutely staggering. Sophie Cunningham has been fined at least $2,900 this season across these documented incidents. $500 for the TikTok, $900 for defending Caitlin Clark, $1,500 for her podcast comments. That's nearly $3,000 for telling the truth, defending her teammate, and having opinions about officiating quality. To put it in perspective, WNBA rookie scale salaries start around $60,000. For someone making that kind of money, these fines represent a significant chunk of income. But here's the beautiful irony Cathy Engelbert and her front office goons completely missed. Every single fine has made Sophie Cunningham more powerful. After the Connecticut Sun incident, her social media following exploded from around 350,000 to over 1.6 million overnight. The $500 TikTok fine generated millions of views and engagement.
After 6 years of anonymity, Sophie Cunningham has suddenly become a superstar this season. Why? How did she accomplish the previously unachievable? How did she become a star in a league that seems to be allergic to star power? To her credit, Sophie Cunningham used her brain. She noticed that the path to stardom had already been cleared for her. She emulated the strategy that was utilized by Draymond Green.
Sophie herself pointed out the absurdity of this during her podcast. 95% of the population who watches the WNBA agrees with me. She's absolutely right. Every metric, every fan poll, every social media discussion confirms that WNBA officiating is a disaster. Players across the league have been saying it for months. Angel Reese, the officiating has to be fixed, and I don't give a damn if I get fined. Chicago Sky's Elizabeth Williams called the league's handling of situations really immature. Head coaches like Stephanie White, Becky Hammon, and Natasha Howard have all criticized officiating and faced fines. Even Commissioner Cathy Engelbert admitted there were problems, stating, "We hear the concerns. We take that input. Every play is reviewed. Consistency is important. There's an independent evaluation of our officials. There are ramifications. So it's something we need to continue to work on." If the commissioner herself admits consistency is a problem and they're working to fix it, how exactly is Sophie Cunningham wrong for pointing out the same issues? This isn't just about fines anymore. It's about silencing the most authentic voice in women's basketball.
But, I mean, here's the thing. Are the WNBA referees just kind of bad, especially this season? Yeah, they are. And I think they're just bad all around. You know, it's not even just like one player or one team or anything else like that. Like, they're just overall, like, really bad. But here's the thing, right? Here's what I think, and this is not just pertaining to the WNBA, but just any sports league that has some sort of referee or just some sort of refereeing official. I think after every game, there should be a post-game conference for the referees, just like how there are for the players. And like I said, not even just in the WNBA, but in all sports leagues, because some of the calls that are made, I genuinely look and I'm wondering if I'm watching the same game as the ref.
Sophie's description of her former team's mentality perfectly captures this toxic environment. I know the talks Phoenix had in their locker room, like, we're going to show her what the W really is. I get it, to a certain extent. Every rookie coming into the league, that's how you're going to treat them. But with her, it's more. It's her second year now. Being on her team and seeing it, I'm like, what are people doing? It's just too much. What makes Sophie's situation even more infuriating is how the league treats her compared to the players actually causing problems. She gets fined $1,500 for acknowledging officiating inconsistencies on her podcast. Meanwhile, players who intentionally target and injure opponents get slaps on the wrist. Marina Mabrey, who blindsided Caitlin Clark with a cheap shot that could have caused serious injury, initially received just a technical foul. It was only upgraded to a flagrant after public outcry. The message from Cathy Engelbert's WNBA is crystal clear. Speak truth about our failures and we'll bankrupt you. Actually harm players on the court, and we'll barely notice.
You have seen players in our league try to toughen up Caitlin. I know the talks that Phoenix had in the locker room of no, we're gonna prove her, we're gonna show her what the W really is. I'm what are people doing? It's just too much.
Finally, someone who gets it. Finally, someone in the WNBA who understands this thing called business.
But Sophie Cunningham doesn't care about their intimidation tactics. She's proven that authenticity wins over political correctness every single time. When she called out Caitlin Clark's critics as dumb, she wasn't being crude, she was stating mathematical facts. Every attendance figure, television rating, merchandise sale, and social media metric proves that Clark is the undisputed face of the WNBA. Anyone arguing otherwise is either delusional or dishonest. Sophie's description of Clark's fame level puts it in perfect perspective. It is a cult following. I'm not kidding. Think of the most famous person you know or met. Times it by 10, 20. It's insane. She talked about seeing Travis Kelce and other A-list celebrities flying to Iowa City just to watch Clark play college basketball. This is mainstream superstar status that no WNBA player has ever achieved. And Sophie is the only one honest enough to acknowledge it publicly. The financial impact of these fines on Sophie reveals just how out of touch WNBA leadership really is. When you compare Sophie's WNBA salary to what the average NBA player makes, her $1,500 fine is equivalent to hitting an NBA player with a $200,000 penalty. In the entire history of the NBA, there have only been a handful of fines that steep, and none have been for anything remotely similar to what Sophie did. It's utterly absurd.
She calls out the people out there who refuse to say Caitlin Clark is the face of the league. People who would rather say this person and that person. What about her? What about her? No, there is only one face of the WNBA. There's only one person that has casuals sitting down in front of a TV, glued to their sofa, watching the WNBA. Sophie Cunningham.
Even more telling is how Sophie's teammates react to these fines. When she got the news about the $1,500 penalty, her teammates weren't surprised, they were scared. They know that in Cathy Engelbert's WNBA, honesty is punished and authenticity is penalized. The fact that professional athletes are terrified to speak honestly about their workplace conditions tells you everything about the toxic culture at the top of this league. Sophie's rise to prominence proves that fans are desperate for authentic voices in women's basketball. Her podcast with a volume isn't just entertainment, it's essential listening for anyone who wants unfiltered truth about what's really happening in the WNBA. While other players calculate their words and worry about offending league officials, Sophie built a media empire by being real. She gets fined for telling the truth about officiating while acknowledging how difficult the job is. Meanwhile, Cathy Engelbert collects a commissioner's salary while overseeing a league where the biggest star gets targeted. Attendance relies entirely on one player, and the officiating is so bad that even the commissioner admits it needs work.
The thing about this is, now that Sophie is bringing it up, now ESPN is falling by the wayside of her and actually agreeing that there's some extra sauce going on when it comes to Caitlin Clark getting fouled, getting bullied a little bit, poked in the eye, all that stuff, man. So let's get to them. Why would you want to hurt what everybody is watching? That doesn't make sense. All right.
Sophie's journey from role player to media mogul happened because she understood something that Cathy Engelbert and her front office cronies completely missed. Fans don't want corporate speak and sanitized interviews. They want honesty. They want authenticity. They want someone willing to call out the emperor's lack of clothes, even if it costs the money. Every fine has backfired spectacularly on the WNBA. The $500 TikTok fine made Sophie a social media sensation. The $900 Connecticut Sun fine turned her into a folk hero for Caitlin Clark fans. Now, the $1,500 podcast fine has established her as one of the most important voices in sports media. At this rate, Cathy Engelbert should be cutting Sophie checks instead of fining her. She's done more for WNBA visibility and engagement than any marketing campaign the league has ever run.
All she said was talking about, the refs need to protect. I'm pretty sure. Was it not for her saying the refs need to protect Caitlin Clark? I'm pretty sure that's what she essentially said. The refs need to protect Caitlin Clark. And Caitlin Clark said, finally someone did it. She basically talked about being the refs need to protect the face of the league.
The real scandal isn't Sophie Cunningham criticizing referees. It's that the WNBA would rather silence criticism than fix the problems being criticized. Instead of addressing the officiating inconsistencies that every fan, player, and coach complains about, they fine the messenger. Instead of protecting their biggest stars from targeted harassment, they penalize the players brave enough to stand up for them. Sophie Cunningham represents everything the WNBA should want: authenticity, loyalty, courage, and the ability to connect with fans across all demographics. She's turned controversy into influence, fines into fortune, and criticism into credibility. Yet Cathy Engelbert's response is to keep writing checks from Sophie's bank account for the crime of having opinions. The message is getting through loud and clear to WNBA fans everywhere. When Sophie posts about these fines, the response is always the same: overwhelming support for her honesty and disgust with league management.